be moved into the village manager's budget, as those services would no longer be provided under the marketing and communications group, as well as the fact that the original 9,000 is for the person that was writing our press releases, and that would be gone as well.
So alternative 1 and alternative 2 are not mutually exclusive?
Yes, they are. They're stepped. Alternative 1 is retains external marketing and communication service contract, but strictly takes out the public relations. Tyler?
Do you want me to just do like a 3-minute summary?
Why not?
Because I think there's some confusion on it.
Yes.
And some of you weren't here for when we did this, so is that okay? Okay.
No.
Well, anyways, so in your proposed budget, that's a status quo. That's with how we did things in 2017, and that's how it's presented if we were to continue that in 2018.
And how much money was in it?
Right.
How much money was it?
It's in your budget page.
It's 109.
I think it's 72,000 or something like that, if I remember on the top of my head.
40,000 in levy.
Yeah, 40,000 levy. I think the total expenditures and revenue is around 72,000. Okay, so that's status quo. We provided 2 other alternatives. One other alternative, which we recommend as a minimum, is to reduce the professional fees by 9,000. Crystal Hankey, who has always done our PR and outreach to media, she has taken another position and will no longer be able to provide those functions. After reviewing my role, figuring out some of the HR functions that I can have our payroll specialist do, that's something that I can take on. I've written press releases in the past. I know the outlets that we need to reach out to, so that's a function I feel comfortable that we can absorb at a minimum, okay?
So that would reduce the levy from 40 to...
The levy in that proposal stays the same. If you see the line under revenue, there's a line that says surplus applied, and I think it's 12 grand, am I correct on that, Mark?
I believe so.
Okay, so right now we're using 12 grand to try to balance that budget. So we would propose in that alternative one that would just lower to 3. So we're reducing the surplus applied by 9 grand to compensate for the reduction in professional fees. Okay, any questions on alternative 1?
So the levy would stay the same?
Levy stays the same in alternative 1, correct.
Okay.
Okay? Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Alternative 2 is an approach that if we no longer want to provide professional fees, that we would have the marketing and communications fund take a more hands-on approach as far as continuing the strategy portion of it and acknowledging that the partners, the staff, take a little bit more of a lead active role in some of these communication items. So that would be myself, Caitlin Watson with the school district, and Sarah Deneve with BID. In addition to that, what that also means is that there's going to have to still be some funds to do like the design of the 4th of July posters and some of those things. So that's why we have a few dollars budgeted for the design services, and that's going to have to be contracted out to do up to 5 grand or so for those design services, because there's no one in-house that will be able to do that. And then we just have some still funds for postage in case there is an event that we wanted, or some kind of big communication item that we want to do a mail, a community-wide mailing, that we could do that. So that's why we have up to those, those funds separate of 4th of July that we would still allocate. But professional fees would go away. We would no longer have any contractual group, and we would have the marketing communication advisory group take the lead on the strategy portion.
And what would be the net reduction in the levy if that alternate fee is implemented?
20,000.
And what would happen to the surplus applied if alternative 2 was, would it stay the same?
Well, Mark, why don't you handle that?
Well, again, my initial recommendation would be that if we're not maintaining the ongoing multi-jurisdictional funding, that we would shut down the marketing fund, and that those surplus funds would be transferred to the general fund, as the majority of them were funded by tax dollars in any case. Now, we can certainly have a additional discussion once an alternative is selected on whether or not the board finds merit in applying those funds to
Something.
fund that for 1 year, or for whatever mechanism the board wants.
Or we can just keep the surplus in there for a little while too.
That certainly would be consistent with my basic initial recommendation.
Sure.
Can I
Okay.
ask a question? So, if I got this correct, for the 20,000 that would remain, if we went with alternative 2, so we would be reducing the levy by 20,000, but the 20,000 that would remain, about 5,000 is staying for design services, as we don't have women on staff. 7,500 about is for the contract for 4th of July, so that leaves
7,500.
7,500. And that's for if we have any communications, which I support. I just want to be clear, in the marketing advisory committee, I understand, would decide on some of these 70, if there was something to utilize the 7,500. I want to also know if we're talking about village communications, as we talked about prior in our prior setting, not just marketing, can the board also have input into if we come up with a communication we feel is necessary or.
This goes into, so this goes into the village manager budget, which is a village budget item. So, I think that's another added benefit, is that there's some more flexibility on how we can use that for whatever communication.
Okay, so, one of the other items mentioned in alternative number 2 is the contribution to the bike race. So if we were to go with this alternative 2, we're stating that we're not going to conduct the criterion here next year.
Yeah, no, so the bid, so not only 20,000 on the village levy, but that's 10,000 for the school, as well as 10,000 the bid. So the bid actually is gonna get 10,000 back.
Okay.
However, we're gonna say that the village is no longer gonna contribute the 7,500,
25.
is it 2,500? Thank you, 2,500 for the bike race, because they're getting 10,000 back. So I guess you could say that's a net of 7,500 that the bid gets back.
And just to verify, Paul did mention that the bid board voted on their budget, and it includes that.
That concept?
That concept.
Okay.
For this year. But I did bring up trustee
Okay.
Bosphorus's concern last time she was unable to attend, but that doesn't guarantee that they will continue to put that in the budget.
Okay.
Is there any reason we couldn't keep the surplus? So we have 20,000 in expense, basically. So is there any reason we couldn't keep the surplus applied in there and just put an 8,000 in levy, and then we've netted out the surplus applied, and we don't have that? I mean, I'm not sure why we would keep the surplus in the fund, especially if we're moving the expenditures to other budgets.
So would that keep the fund intact for one more year, and you're using,
Yeah.
No, I think
you're depleting fund balance and
what
Same structure.
I'm, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is kind of the same concept as with the preserved liquor license. We've got an ongoing service that's being funded with surplus, which is maybe it'd be gapped for a year, perhaps 2 years, and then again, we start in a hole. So it would be, from a budgeting, just strictly budgeting perspective, I'd rather budget for ongoing services funded by ongoing revenues, and then surpluses, that'd be my preference, and then surpluses would be applied for one-time needs or emergencies, or, again, it's all at the discretion of the body.
Trustee Rosick brought up a really good point, which the surplus that's in there is not just from the village, it's from other entities also who've been contributing. So you know, I'm not sure, you know, I think there's a certain rightness to continuing to use it for the purpose that they originally contributed the money, unless we want to refund it, unless we want to split it 3 or 4 ways and refund it.
Kind of offer a
Because
solution.
we've been the agent for multiple agencies, not just ourselves. So I don't know as the agent that we could just say, oh, we're, you know, changing how we're doing this and we're going to take the surplus.
Well, I just, conceptually, I don't have a real big problem with that, because our plan is not to do the full scope of services the original marketing group did. We're gonna spend a little more focused on, you know, that being in the village manager's budget. I mean, obviously, it's a multi-organizational effort, but I think the scope does change, so.
Or transfer to Shorewood today, because Shorewood today is
Right.
still something that we're all doing together, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, there's a couple options how you could achieve that, even though it's a small amount of money, you're transferring all the functions to the general fund, and the plan was the fund balance would also be transferred to the general fund. What you could do with it, though, is reserve that fund balance, that 20,000, for public information, for
12,000.
marketing. In the general fund, you would have that as a separate line item, and you could use it over the years for special one-time projects. It's a little bit of accounting for such a small amount of money, but that's one solution that would allow you to segregate that and target it for marketing type use. The other thing you could do is transfer it to Shorewood today, which is a related issue and benefits the whole community. You could blend it in some fashion to using it for the magazine piece. Any problems with either one of those, Mark, in terms of, I realize it's a small amount of money, but there's a
Well,
philosophical issue that fixes it.
Again, just from my perspective, again, funding ongoing operations using reserves is a poor practice.
Yeah, I'm not talking about ongoing, I'm talking about just reserving it for now as a separate line item in the general.
Well, if you reserve it and never use it, what's the point of reserve?
Well,
I mean, just,
you can use it in the future, but for one
Mark,
time,
one person If we were to take it, what is your opinion though, if we were to take it instead of general fund reserves, like Shorewood today reserves?
But you
I
can,
guess I would kind of, it's just, I'm for reducing to 20 and eliminating professional fees. I would suggest we keep the fund active, close out the year, we find out the exact amount at the year end, and then
And keep the balance of.
keep the balance in that fund, and then we can decide, do we want to distribute it back? Do we want to transfer it to another Shorewood day today, but not build it into ongoing operating? I'm concerned about building it into ongoing operating. Yes.
I just feel like we're just postponing that decision, and we can do that decision today. And so it's gonna be the same decision, because you're just, so, in my opinion, we have funded marketing with surplus 1,000,000 times in the past, have we not? We funded Shorewood today with surplus, so I'm so confused with this of not funding, using surplus towards a budget. Help me out. We did,
well, again, staff makes recommendations
right,
to the village manager, and the village manager
I
puts
understand
forth
that.
the proposed budget. And, you know, in the marketing, there had been some concepts that were envisioned that really never came to full fruition, which generated some surpluses. And,
Didn't this year we use surplus for Shorewood today? Or was that just last year? I think it was just last year.
We do surplus. Mark's, I mean, Mark's just saying it's the best
Yeah.
practice.
I know.
You can still do it, but I mean, he's giving you caution.
I know, and I appreciate
Yeah,
that, I do appreciate that. I'm just saying, and I'm doing the opposite side of the coin here, just as the policy, discussion.
Yeah.
That we've done it, this is the last of the funding, so it's not like it can be a continuation of a practice, it's just, we have, what is it, 12,500, I don't know how much the exact total is, but whatever that number is, it's left, and we probably should use it or give it back. Those are what I feel comfortable doing.
And again, my proposal is to split the baby. We were going to keep the fund balance intact, move it to the general fund. If you leave that fund open, you've got another accounting unit, and you're going to have to account for that every year. It's gonna be in your CAFR, there's an expense to doing that. Part of this is to streamline the budget and financial management. But then the 20,000 you transfer over would be restricted in the fund balance total or the general fund for marketing purposes, and it would be used for one-time projects. So you might use it 1 year for some of the 4th of July, there might be a special publication will come along, or some one-time initiatives from year to year until you used it up. So we
The
kind of.
next village survey, for example, might be a,
There you go. So you could use it for the survey, budget it for a one-time expense, and it would be used up.
Yeah, I do think that we've talked a lot about communications and how to be more effective, and so to have some extra money, some reserves to do some special communications along the interests of the board that we've all, raised over the past 2 years, I think would be effective.
But for the survey, just going back to your, if that's an ongoing expense, we do it every certain amount of years, and we will have 7,500 budgeted for